Welcome to this now part 3 of this tutorial series on how to make a realistic VR gun. In the previous video we learned how to snap a magazine to the handle of the gun, and in this video we'll learn how we can use the slider to reload. So the next step for us to make a realistic weapon now is to be able to pull the slider to reload. So let me show you. Let's go back to our gun and navigate here to slider. There you go. So this is the slider that's getting moved in the animator and that we will try to grab. So as we want to grab it, I will add a box collider. There you go. As you can see, it already took the good shape. I will now add an XR interactable, but in my case I will add an XR offset grab interactable. So this was one of the scripts that I made also during my XR tutorial series, and if you want you will be able to find this script in the description below as well. It's exactly like the XR based interactable, but it actually keeps the initial offset that you have between your ends and the interactable. Next, to set up the slider we need to add a configurable joint. So I will search for configurable joint. Now here is how we're going to edit this joint. First, we need to set its connected body. So this will be the handgun connected body. Perfect. Now if I try to zoom in, you can see here some arrow that shows the axis of the configurable joint. And my goal here is to move the red arrow toward this direction, so on the right of the gun, in the direction that we want to pull the slider. So I'm going to change here the axis to 0, 0, -1. And as you can see, we now have here the red axis of the configurable joint pointing to the right direction. Perfect. So now for the X motion, we want it to be limited because after a certain threshold we don't want to keep sliding the slider. The Y motion can be locked, the Z motion can be locked, as well as all of the angular motion. Now for the linear limit we can set a limit of 0.02 maybe. And finally, the last step to be able to grab an object and still have its physical properties working is to set the movement type here not to kinematic but to velocity tracking. Okay, so let's click on play to test our game. So if I approach my hands and now if I try to grab the slider, as you can see it's doing a really weird things right there and it's not working properly. And so here, this issue took me actually a lot of time to figure out, and it's simply because the animator that is used to fire a bullet doesn't like that we are moving ourselves the slider. So for now, I think I will just disable the animator of the gun by going here on the gun and deactivate the animator. And now let's try again our game. Okay, so much better. I think it's working. We have a jingling when we move the gun, and I think we need to somehow increase the friction of the slider. But anyway, I can grab the handle and I can move it and it follows my other hand. So this is working for now, and let me show you how we can fix the little wiggle issue. So to improve the friction of the slider, we can go back to our configurable joint here on the slider, and on the X drive we need to improve the position spring, so something like 2000. And now let's try again what this does. Okay, so much better. The slider is not moving that much anymore, but it has a little weird wiggle, and when we try to release it does this kind of bounce. So to remove the bounce when the joint gets to its target position, we simply need to increase the damper. So I will increase here the position damper to 200 maybe. And now if I grab, as you can see, it is working properly, but we have only one last issue. As you can see, I'm able to pull on both sides, and so this is not something that I want to do. I only want to pull it towards me. And so we can actually fix this also in the configurable joint. To do this, we can increase the target position by 2 times the value of the limit, so 0.04. And now if I click on play, as you can see, we have an offset that is created by changing here the target position. And to fix this issue, we can click here on auto configure connected, uncheck the auto configure connected, and we can slightly decrease here the connected unsure. So if I write 0, as you can see, it's a bit too much. So maybe I can do 0.01. And there you go. I think that 0.01 is the correct value to shift everything. And now if I maximize the window and that I try to grab it, as you can see, now it correctly only pulls from one side and I'm not able to pull the slider forward. So everything is working well for now. And before here leaving play mode, make sure to go in the configurable joint to copy its components, leave play mode and paste back the component when we are not in play mode. And so I don't know if you remember, but to make this work, we had to disable the animator. So let me show you how we can keep the animator so that we will still be able to shoot and reload at the same time. And so actually it's really easy. All we need to do is go back to the slider, and here in the event, we can click on plus on select enter and on plus on select exit, and we can drag here the animator, select enable and disable when we select enter. And finally on select exit, I want to do exactly the same, but this time re-enable the animator of the gun. And now there you go, we can go back to the animator that we disabled and re-enable it. And this way, when we are pulling the slider, the animator will not get on our way. So let me show you this by clicking on play. And there you go, if I grab the gun, when I grab the slider, I can reload safely. So everything is working well. And so at this state, as you can see, all of the sub mechanisms of our gun are working. So we can remove and pull back a magazine, and we can reload by moving the slider with the other end. But all of this mechanism does do nothing. So let me show you how we can connect this mechanism to the simple shoot script. So first I will select here the magazine black, and I will create a new component called magazine. And this component will be the simple script error. The purpose is just to track somewhere the number of bullets that we have. So I will simply have on this script a public int variable called number of bullets and set it to 8 at first. Perfect. Now we can have multiple magazine as well. So maybe I can duplicate this one and you can create as many as you wished. But if you want this magazine to be present inside the magazine socket at the start of the game, you can do this by going to our magazine socket over there. And as you can see, we have here a parameter for the starting selected interactable. So I can drag the first magazine, for example, there. And now if we click on play, as you can see, the magazine snapped directly to the inside of the gun. So that's perfect. And you know what? I think I will actually put it directly in the position of the handle. So we can maybe just drag it over there under the magazine location, recenter its position, and finally pull it back to the root. And there you go. By doing this little maneuver, the magazine has already took the good position of the gun. Okay, now for the simple shoot script, we can open it. And I'm going to create 3 functions. The first function will be add magazine. The second function will be remove magazine. And the third one will be slide. I will also add a new public variable of type magazine, and it will be the current magazine that the gun is using. And so I want this add magazine function to be called when we are snapping the magazine to the XR socket. And so to do so, we can add at the top here using Unity engine.xr.interaction.toolkit. And then we can add another public variable of type XR base interactor and this will be the socket interactor. And to call here this add magazine and this remove magazine function when we snap or release the magazine, we can do in the start function socket interactor dot on select enter, and we can here add the add magazine function. So I actually need here to do so to add an XR based interactable as a variable. And now I can do add listener, add magazine. Perfect. We can do exactly the same, but this time with on select exit. So we'll add the listener remove magazine. And now inside these two functions, what we want to do is set the magazine to be the magazine attached to the interactable. So interactable.getComponent magazine. Perfect. Also, you know what? I will play a little audio when we add the magazine. So for this, I will create a new public audio clip that I will call reload. And we can do as we did before, source.play one shot reload. Now to remove the magazine, we can simply do magazine equals null. And you know what, as I really like to play sounds when we do something, I will also play a little the reload sound when we remove the magazine. And there you go. Now using the magazine, we can know how many bullets we have left. And so when we pull the trigger, we first need to know if we have a magazine, but also that the magazine bullets, so the number of bullets is greater than 0. And if we go on the shoot function, we can do magazine the dot number of bullets minus minus, and this way this will decrease by 1 unit the number of bullets from the magazine. And in the case that we have no magazine or no bullet left, we can also play a little audio. So I'm going to add at the top a new audio clip called no ammo, and I will do source.play one shot no ammo. Perfect. And so there you go. I think that we are good right now. We can save our script and go back to Unity. So for the setup of the simple shoot script, we can drag here the sound that I've previously imported in my project. So the reload in the reload sound and the no ammo in the no ammo sound. For the magazine, we can use the magazine script on the magazine that is currently inside our handle. So it's this one. So I'm going to drag it here over there. And finally, for the socket interactor that is responsible to snap the magazine, we can drag here our little sphere that we made. And there you go. Now everything is set up. We can try our game by clicking on play. Okay, so as you can see, I'm able to grab the gun. But once I shot 8 bullets, I am not able to shoot any bullets anymore, and as you can see, I have the no ammo. But if I release the magazine, I am able to shoot. That's perfect. And as you can see, if I use the same magazine as before. Okay, and finally, we have one last job to make, and it's to have good use of the slider that we made. So actually, in the mechanism that I want for my gun, I want first the player to snap the magazine inside the gun, and then to reload by pulling the slider. This might not be the exact same way that this gun is working, but yeah, you know what? I can do whatever I want. It's my game afterward. So to use finally the slider, what we can do is use the slide function here that we made. And so what we need for this function is to add a private bool called as slide and set it to true at first. When we add a new magazine, what we want to do is set the as slide value to false. This way this will force the player to slide after it has snapped the magazine. And finally, in the slide function, we simply need to set as slide to true. And also we can use as before the reload audio. Perfect. And now with this, we can add the as-slide condition when we pull the trigger. So I will just add as slide, and this way we are not able to shoot if we have no magazine and that the player has not slid it beforehand. Okay, now the final job is to call this function. So this is the final job that we need to make to finish this setup. And so for this, we need to find a way to know when this slider reach this point. So in the slider here, I'm going to click on add component and create a new script called onTargetReach. Now on this script, what I want is a public float variable called threshold. We can set it to 0.02, for example. Then what we need is a public transform parameter that I will call target. And now we don't need the start, neither the update function, but we need the fixed update function. And inside this fixed update, I'm going to check if the transform position of this game object is the same as the target. So I will do float distance equals vector3.distance between the transform position and the target position. And now if the distance is less than the threshold, it means that we reach the target, and so we can do whatever we want here. So in my case, I will add at the top using Unity Engine.event, and I will create as a new parameter a Unity event called onReach, and this way I will be able to do whatever I want using this Unity event by simply invoking it here. Perfect. So right now this setup will work, but we have a little issue going on with this script. When the game object reaches its target, it will call here the onReach function all the time and not just once. So an easier way to only call this function once is to add a private bool variable called wasReached and set it to false. And now in the if statement, we can check that we were not reached in the previous frame, and we can set the was reached to true in this case. But in the case that the distance is greater or equals than the threshold, we can set was reached to false. Okay, so now everything is working fine. We can save our script and go back to Unity. Now for the target, I will simply create an empty game object as a child of the parent of the slider by right-clicking, create empty, and call it slider target. So we want the slider to be at the same position as the slider. So I'm going to copy and pass the position of the slider over there. And finally, we want the target position to be a bit on the right over there. So I'm going to move it like this. I think that this will be enough. This way, the function will work when we have this going on. Okay, and now we can drag the slider target. And now for the event that we want to call when we reach the target, I'm going to click on the plus and drag here the simple shoot function over there. And finally, select slide. And there you go. Now, if we click on play, I hope that everything will work fine. As you can see, it is working. I'm able to pull the slider, and when it reached its target, we heard a little click, which means that the event is working. So that's perfect. And let us try this. If we pull a new magazine, I cannot shoot, but once I reload by pulling the slider, but we have a last issue. When I'm shooting, the animation that moved the slider is making it reach its target. So we need to fix these issues. And an easy way to do so is to simply disable this onTargetReach function script and simply enable it only when we grab the slider. So here on the XR offset grab interactable, I'm going to click on this plus button on select enter. The same goes for the on select exit. And we can drag the slider and select here the onTargetReach function and set enables to true when we grab it, and do the same when we release it, but this time disable it. And there you go. Now, if I click on play, and there you have it, we managed to create a realistic weapons that you can use for any gun that you want. For example, here we used a pistol, but you can actually do the exact same thing for a shotgun, for example. I hope that you enjoy watching this video. Thank you for watching till this point. Make sure to subscribe, and a big shout out to my new Patreon, which will appear on the side of the screen right now. And if like them you want to support the channel and have access to all of the source code of my videos and exclusive tutorials, join us. The link is in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.